Are you spending hours, like hours, trying to memorize new English words, only to feel like they just vanish the moment you actually need them? What if everything you've been taught about learning vocabulary is actually making it harder for you to remember? You might be making one, or maybe even several, of the most common mistakes. Welcome to Daily English Practice. Listen and speak. It's a feeling almost every language learner knows, isn't it? That intense frustration, spending all his time, looking over new words, trying so hard to make them stick, and then they just don't. Or maybe worse, you see the word, you hear it, you think, yeah, I know that one. But then you try to use it in a real conversation. Poof, gone. You're scrambling for something else. It's such a common struggle, and our deep dive today shows it often comes down to some, fundamental mistakes in how we actually try to learn vocabulary.
That's exactly right. A lot of these struggles, they aren't really about how much effort you're putting in. It's more about a mismatch between, the usual learning methods and how our brains are actually wired to hold on to information. We found several common traps learners fall into.
Okay, so let's break these down, these mistakes that might be holding you back. The first one. Honestly, I've done this myself so many times, is learning new words, but then not consistently reviewing them. It feels like dropping words into a leaky bucket.
Oh, absolutely. It's a classic error, and probably the biggest one we see in the research. It completely ignores something called the forgetting curve from Herman Ebbinghaus. Get this. If you learn, say, 100 new words in one go, after just 18 minutes, you'd probably only remember about 55.
Wow, 18 minutes.
Yeah, and then the next day, that drops to maybe 40. After a week, you might only have 30 words left. 30.
30 out of 100, wow, that feels really discouraging when you've put in the time. Like, what was the point?
You can feel that way, definitely. But here's the good news, the really encouraging part from our research. You can slow that forgetting way, way down with some simple reviews. Like if you review those same 100 words after just 18 minutes, you could remember maybe 70 the next day. And if you keep reviewing daily, you could hold on to about 80% after a week instead of just that depressing 30%. The real key here, the thing that makes words truly stick long-term, is what's called a spaced repetition system, SRS. It's all about spacing out your reviews intelligently. No more cramming.
Spaced repetition. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And often that fear of forgetting or just wanting to learn really fast catches us into another mistake, right? Trying to learn way too many words at once. I remember thinking, okay, 50 new words today, let's go. Big mistake, probably.
Oh yeah, that temptation is so real. Especially when you're starting out, you're eager, you want to see progress fast. People aim for 50, sometimes even 100 words a day. But like we just said with the forgetting curve, without review, they just poof, disappear. You put in all that energy, and then you're just disappointed because so little actually stuck. If you want words you can actually use, in real life, the research suggests new words should only be about maybe 10–15% of your total vocabulary effort.
Ah, okay. So it's not about the sheer number of new words each day, but more about the consistency and like how you manage the review of old words too.
Exactly. Trying to cram long lists, maybe for a test. Sure, you might pass the test, but will you remember those words a month later? Probably not. Long-term retention is really poor with cramming. The better way, consistently shown in research, is learn more often, but in smaller chunks. So instead of one exhausting hour trying to learn 50 words, maybe focus on just 5 or 10 words and do it in little 10-minute sessions, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. Much less tiring, much more effective.
Yeah, I can see how breaking it down makes it feel less overwhelming and more sustainable, definitely. Now, what about mistake number 3? Passive learning, just like reading word lists and thinking you know them. I do this all the time. Glance down. Yep, got it.
That is such a common trap, and it feels comforting, right?
Huh.
But it's deceptive. Just reading words or reading your notes, it creates this illusion of knowing. But reading alone, it's just not very effective for locking things into memory. Think about it. How much do you really remember from that article you just skimmed yesterday? Usually less than you think. The crucial thing here is active recall. You have to actively try to pull the information out of your brain. When your brain has to work, has to search for the answer, that's what strengthens the memory, much more than just passively seeing it again.
So active recall. It's like doing a rep at the gym for your brain. Makes the memory muscle stronger.
Exactly like that. A mental workout. And linked to that, there's another subtle mistake many people make, testing themselves the wrong way. A lot of us test from English to our native language. You see the English word, you check if you know the meaning. And yeah, that helps your passive vocabulary, the words you understand when you read or hear them. But it doesn't really help you produce the word when you need it. It can make you feel fluent because you recognize everything, but...
Right, so you understand it perfectly when someone else says it, but when it's your turn to speak, blank. That's a huge problem for actual conversation.
Precisely. To build your active vocabulary, the words you can actually pull out and use yourself, you need to test the other way around, from your mother tongue to English. So you see the word in your language and you have to recall the English word. It feels harder, definitely. It takes more mental effort. But that effort, that's what builds real, usable fluency.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. We've talked about the pitfalls, the common mistakes. But what's the actual science here? How do we really make words stick using how our brains are designed to learn?
Great question. Because it's not just about avoiding bad habits, it's about actively using good ones based on how memory works. Let's go back to spaced repetition, SRS. The timing, like I said, is everything. It works by showing you a word just as you're about to forget it. Not too soon, not too late. It's optimized. And the research is pretty clear. SRS can lead to something like a 200% improvement in long-term retention compared to just cramming. And that's using the same amount of study time.
Wow, 200% better retention just by changing when you review? That's huge. It really is about studying smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. Smarter. SRS works because it aligns with how our brains consolidate memories. Memory consolidation is the process of moving information from your short-term, temporary memory to your long-term, permanent storage. Think of it like your brain filing things away properly. SRS helps that filing process by reinforcing the memory at just the right moments, strengthening the connections over time. That's why apps like Anki or Hey Llama are so effective. They use algorithms to track your forgetting curve for each word and schedule the reviews automatically. Takes the guesswork out of it.
Right, the apps handle the timing. And then there's active recall. You mentioned it's like a mental workout. How does that fit into the science?
Well, it's more than just remembering passively. Active recall means actively retrieving the information. You're sourcing your brain to find it. And there's this thing called the testing effect. Loads of studies show that actively testing yourself on something helps you remember it much, much better long-term than just rereading it. For instance, testing yourself right after you learn something seems to lock it in better than just studying it again immediately. That effort of pulling the information out, that's what really cements it in your memory. Makes it easier to grab next time.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. We get the why now, why things weren't working, and how the brain actually learns. So let's dive into the how. Practical stuff we can use today. Flashcards are everywhere, but it sounds like we need a strategy.
Yeah, flashcards are great tools if used right. First thing, focus. Don't try to learn every single word out there. It's overwhelming. Use the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. Roughly 20% of words account for 80% of usage. So aim for the most common words first, maybe the top 2,000. That gives you a huge boost in understanding and speaking ability pretty quickly.
Right. Focus on high-frequency words first. Get the biggest bang for your buck, learning-wise. Makes sense.
Exactly. Second, use sentence flashcards. Never just the word alone. Put the new word in a full, meaningful sentence. Ideally, get audio too from a native speaker or good text-to-speech. This gives you context. You see how the word is used, not just what it means in theory. And crucially, link this back to active recall. Put your native language translation on the front. Then you flip it over and challenge yourself to recall the English word and sentence. This forces that deeper processing we talked about.
Whoa, okay. Native language on the front, recall the English. That's a big mental shift for a lot of people, myself included.
It really is. But it makes a huge difference for active vocabulary. And one more tip. Try making your own flashcards. The act of creating them, finding the sentence, maybe an image helps you learn it right there. Plus, they're personalized to your context. For digital tools, yeah, Anki is powerful, very customizable, but maybe a bit complex to set up. Llama is newer, uses AI specifically for language learning, suggests sentences, helps with pronunciation. It's quite streamlined. And Quizlet is good too, especially for quick reviews or specific test prep, though maybe less focused on that super long-term SRS stuff.
Okay, so strategic flashcards are one piece, but how do we make these words feel less foreign, more like part of our own thinking? Just knowing the word isn't always enough in a fast conversation.
You're absolutely right. That's where immersion and context come in. Words learned in isolation, easily forgotten, easily misused, no real connection. You always need context. Learn them in sentences, in phrases, and try to create an immersion environment, even if you can't travel. Surround yourself with English. Buy magazines, books, watch movies, TV shows. Maybe start with English subtitles, then try without. Listen to English podcasts, music. When you hear or read a new phrase you don't know, write it down, look it up later. Make it an active process.
So it's less about sitting down to study vocabulary and more about just living with the language all around you.
Pretty much. And that leads naturally to the use it or lose it idea. You have to actively use the new words. Best case, talk to native speakers, online tutors, language partners, whatever works. But even if you can't do that right away, you can still use them. Write comments online using the word. Watch a video where you expect to hear it. Or just say the word out loud to yourself in a full sentence, anything to produce it. Oh, and a tip for looking up words. Try Google Images first for nouns, get a picture. Then an English-to-English dictionary. Use translation tools like Google Translate only as a last resort. Direct translations can sometimes be misleading, miss the nuance.
That's much more active and honestly sounds more fun than just drilling lists. What about other senses? Getting creative.
Yes, engaging more senses definitely helps. So first, say the words out loud. Always. It helps with pronunciation, obviously, but also just gets your mouth and brain used to forming the word. Makes it feel more natural when you need it for real. And if a word's pronunciation is tricky, write it down how it sounds to you, like your own little phonetic code. Helps you remember.
I like that. A personal pronunciation key. Smart. And what about those memory tricks? Mnemonics. Are they actually useful?
They can be incredibly useful. Mnemonics are just mental shortcuts. You use associations, often weird ones, to remember things. Like remembering accommodation has 2 C's and 2 M's by thinking 2 cots, 2 mattresses. Simple association. Or acronyms, like making a shopping list word. Store for spaghetti, tomatoes, olives, rice, eggs. Or creating really strange mental images, like to remember the Spanish verb caber, meaning to fit. Maybe picture trying to stuff a giant angry bear into a tiny cab. The stranger, the more vivid, the better it sticks. Seriously, the weirder the better sometimes. Don't be afraid to get silly with it.
Huh. A bear in a cab. I can see how that would stick.
Hmm.
Is there research on which types work best for language learners?
Yeah, there is. One study with ESL students found that the keyword method linking the new word's sound or spelling to a known word and sentence creation methods were the most popular, both around 26%. Visual mnemonics were next, about 18%, then musical ones. Acronyms were actually least popular in that study. The keyword thing might be especially good for languages that are really different, like maybe Chinese and English, where there aren't many similar-looking words. It helps build a bridge. But really, the core idea is multisensory engagement. Write the word, type it, draw a picture for it, say it while you write it. Combine senses.
This all sounds amazing, really powerful.
Right.
But the consistency thing, that's always the hard part, right? Keeping it up without getting overwhelmed or bored, especially with SRS reviews piling up.
Absolute critical point. It really comes down to 2 things, routine and pacing. First, try to build a daily routine, even just 10-15 minutes, every single day. Doing a little bit consistently builds huge momentum over time, becomes a habit, needs less willpower.
So short daily bursts are better than long, infrequent study marathons. That kind of goes against how we think about studying sometimes.
It does, but the learning science supports it. And specifically with SRS apps, if you try to learn too much too fast, say 20 or 30 new words every day, you'll eventually get buried in reviews. After a few months, you might have hundreds of reviews due each day. It becomes a chore, leads to burnout fast. It's much more sustainable and actually more effective long-term to aim for maybe 5 to 10 new words or flashcards a day. Keep it manageable.
Okay, 5 to 10 new ones. Play the long game. Avoid the review avalanche.
Exactly. And mix it up. Don't just do flashcards, even if they're great. Combine your SRS reviews with watching movies, reading stuff you enjoy, listening to music, trying to chat. Keep it interesting. Set small goals you can actually hit. Feel good about the progress. And if you're feeling tired, take a break. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Pacing prevents burnout. So if we bring it all together, mastering vocabulary, it's really less about brute force, hammering words into your head. It's much more about understanding how your brain actually learns best and then using strategies that work with it. The key things we've talked about based on solid research are: first, prioritize reviewing using spaced repetition to beat that forgetting curve. Second, actively test yourself using active recall. Make your brain work for it. Third, always learn words in context, in sentences, in real situations. Gives them meaning. Fourth, engage your senses, get creative with mnemonics, and definitely say words out loud. And finally, be consistent with daily, small learning chunks, but crucially, pace yourself so you don't burn out. Keep it sustainable.
Just imagine how much faster your English could improve if you started using even one of these science-backed strategies today. What new words will you tackle first? And how are you going to make sure they stick around for good this time? Thank you for listening to this deep dive on how to memorize new English words quickly, best techniques for learners here on Daily English Practice. Listen and speak. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to our channel for more insights and practical tips.